A full skin transplant, the Borg in a castle, and a missed casting opportunity. While this is one of Star Trek's best films, it could have been so very different. So here are 5 things you probably didn't know about what is my favourite Star Trek film, First Contact. So let's get into it. Look, there's nothing wrong with aging. We've seen so many of our beloved Star Trek characters get older over time, aging gracefully. And personally, as someone approaching their mid-40s, I really need to know that I'm going to look more like Takei at 88 than the salt vampire in The Man Trap. However, while it is okay for certain characters to look older, it is a problem when one of those characters is supposed to be an android without the ability to age. So, with that in mind, an idea was suggested that would have changed the film. In First Contact, Data receives skin grafts to his arm and face. Well, the original idea floated about was that he would receive a full body skin graft so that his skin could be replaced with either aged skin or even a younger actor. And I'm thankful that they went with what they shot in the end. Though, in Picard Season 3, we did see a fully skinned, aged, and I assume fully functional Data.
Of course, but...
How fully?
What if the Borg hadn't travelled backeth to the hour First Contact did occur, but instead did travel backeth a bit further, and hath found themselves in a castle? This was a real idea. The Borg in a medieval castle. The first draft of First Contact was called Star Trek Renaissance, and would have seen our heroes and the Borg travel all the way back to the Renaissance period. The Borg would have been holed up in a castle's dungeon, planning to disrupt humanity's exploration and scientific discovery, somehow assimilating, crossbows and suits of armour. Now, when Braga and Moore brainstormed ideas, sword fights were planned, which would have made for interesting combat between the crew and the Borg. But if you think that was unhinged, another proposed storyline would have seen Data become Da Vinci's apprentice. Now, luckily these ideas were shelved and we ended up with the movie we all know and love. If you watched my 5 Things videos about the motion picture and the Wrath of Khan, you'll know that there are some links to another famous space-based franchise.
Hello there.
And in First Contact, we have a cameo of sorts from that franchise. Something iconic. As with all the other movies before, except for Star Trek V, special effects for First Contact were handled by ILM. In the 90s, ILM had become the go-to for special effects, having worked on movies like Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, Forrest Gump, Jumanji, and Mission Impossible. I mean, not bad for a company that was created solely for Star Wars. So, yes, the Millennium Falcon is in First Contact, making a brief blink-and-you'll-miss-it cameo at the Battle of Sector 001. John Knoll, ILM visual effects supervisor, was working on First Contact, but had also worked on the Star Wars Special Edition. It was for these special editions that a digital model of the Millennium Falcon had been created. So, as a fun Easter egg, Knoll inserted the model into the battle with the Borg, and if you pause at the right time, you can see the ship right here. And it makes sense that the Falcon would make a cameo as opposed to, say, the Death Star. Otherwise, the battle would have been a lot shorter. First Contact has a few cameos from established Star Trek alumni. The obvious ones are Dwight Schultz returning as Barclay and Robert Picardo appearing as the Enterprise E's EMH. However, there are 2 other in plain sight cameos that appear in the holodeck scene. Ethan Phillips, aka Neelix, plays the hologram Maitre D, and Brannon Braga, the screenwriter, also makes a brief appearance. Also, technically speaking, since Michael Dorn had joined the cast of Deep Space Nine, he could be counted as a cameo, but I'm not going to. Neither am I counting the unsubstantiated rumor that Kelsey Grammer has an uncredited cameo as Captain Morgan Bateson of the USS Bozeman, saying the line "acknowledged" when the Enterprise crew listens into the battle. However, there is one very cool cameo, and that was the bartender Eddie, played by Michael Zaslow. Zaslow had originally played Crewman Darnell, the first person to ever be killed off in Star Trek, which led to the first ever "He's Dead, Jim." Though, this time it was more "End program, Jim." One more what if for you. The character of Zephram Cochrane was played by James Cromwell. Cromwell's Cochrane was a cynical drunk who was only in it for the money. However, through his interactions with the Enterprise crew, his outlook changed on what he was achieving. However, this could have been played very differently if a casting idea floated about early on had come to fruition: Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is a huge Star Trek fan, and his was a name that was considered for the role. In 2023, on an appearance in the Happy Sad Confused podcast, Hanks said the following: "The guy who invented warp drive? Oh, come on, I would have jumped on that. I would have come in and I would have brought gift tribbles to everybody at the first meeting. Guys, here's some tribbles for you." Ultimately, this casting never happened, with Ron D. Moore revealing in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter in 2021 that it never got that far. And this was likely due to Hanks' commitment to writing and directing the movie That Thing You Do. And look, James Cromwell is fantastic in First Contact, but you do wonder how different it could have been.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own.
You are a toy! So there you have it. But I know that you're itching to have your turn. So get into the comments and tell me a fact that you know, one that I missed. I do try and read every comment, so I look forward to seeing what you share. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, go and check out the rest of my 5 Things series right here. You can also support this channel by liking the video and hitting the subscribe button. I'm working towards 5,000 subscribers and I'd love to have you on board. Hey, maybe when we hit 5,000 subscribers, I'll do a Q&A video or something. Thanks for watching.